Tonight we cover a story with global consequences. 7 major U.S. trade partners, Germany, Japan, South Korea, France, India, Brazil, and Australia, have redirected key trade agreements to Canada. This is a seismic shift in global commerce, shaking America's long-held position at the center of world trade. The coordinated move signals a dramatic loss of confidence in the U.S. as a stable partner. Years of trade disputes and unpredictable policies have led to this moment. The world is now looking to Canada for leadership on trade. A joint statement from the 7 nations praised Canada's commitment to stable, rules-based trade, an implicit rebuke of recent U.S. actions. This wasn't a rash decision but a calculated pivot away from Washington. The consequences are immediate uncertainty, concern, and a challenge to the U.S. dollar's dominance. Our economic leadership is no longer guaranteed. We must now confront a new reality, one where our position must be earned, not assumed. Tonight, we'll break down how we got here, and what this means for American jobs, security, and the future. The world's economic blueprint is being redrawn, and the U.S. is no longer at the center. The tremors are being felt from Washington to capitals around the globe. How did we lose the trust of our closest partners? What does this mean for every American family? Let's find out. To understand this shift, we need to revisit the U.S.-Canada trade relationship. For over a century, our economies have been deeply intertwined. Landmark agreements like the 1989 Free Trade Agreement and NAFTA created one of the world's largest free trade zones. Billions in goods crossed our borders daily, with supply chains linking Michigan, Ontario, and Mexico. But the late 2010s brought a wave of protectionism in the U.S. NAFTA was replaced by the USMCA after tense negotiations and tariff threats. This sowed doubt among our partners, who began to see the U.S. as unpredictable. Meanwhile, Canada took a different path, signing major deals with the EU and Pacific nations, including agreements the U.S. abandoned. Canada positioned itself as a champion of free trade and stability. The world noticed. As the U.S. turned inward, Canada built new alliances. The stage was set for today's dramatic realignment. The old certainties of American trade leadership have eroded. Canada's alternative is now the model others are choosing. Our divergence in strategy has real consequences. The U.S. is no longer the only gateway to North America. The world is moving on, and Canada is leading the way. This crisis didn't erupt overnight. The first warning came on July 15, 2025, when the U.S. imposed a surprise 15% tariff on imported electronics, hitting Japan, South Korea, and Germany hard. Diplomatic protests followed, but the U.S. stood firm, citing economic security. On August 1st, German and French leaders publicly condemned the tariffs, signaling a break with Washington. Behind the scenes, the 7 nations began coordinating with Canada. The tipping point, August 10th, when a U.S. delegation walked out of WTO talks meant to resolve the dispute. This was seen as a rejection of the international system. Within 72 hours, the decision to pivot to Canada was finalized. The coordinated announcement on August 19th was the culmination of a month-long crisis. The joint statement praised Canada's support for multilateral trade without directly naming the U.S. The message was unmistakable: predictability and stability matter. As one European diplomat put it, "We chose Canada to protect our interests from instability." The world has changed quickly and decisively. The U.S. is now on the outside, looking in. This was not about punishing America, but about safeguarding economic futures. The rupture is real, and the consequences are global. The international order has shifted, and the U.S. must reckon with its new reality. The numbers reveal the scale of this shift. The 7 countries account for nearly $1.8 trillion in U.S. trade, about 35% of our international commerce. Losing even part of that is a major blow. Key sectors, automotive, electronics, agriculture, are most affected. Germany, Japan, and South Korea supply over $150 billion in vehicles and parts annually. Now, much of that will flow through Canadian ports, not American ones. U.S. dockworkers, logistics firms, and assembly plants will feel the pain. In tech, South Korea and Japan's semiconductors will enter North America tariff-free via Canada. Billions in high-tech components are being rerouted. Canadian cities like Toronto and Vancouver are poised to attract new investment. Agriculture and consumer goods from France, India, Brazil, and Australia, worth over $200 billion, are also shifting north. The long-term effect, a slow erosion of American economic activity. Every container rerouted to Montreal instead of New York is a small but significant loss. Multiplied by millions, it's a national crisis in the making. The economic exodus is underway. The economic fallout is severe, but the political damage may be even deeper. For decades, the US anchored the global order, writing the rules, guaranteeing stability. Now, 7 major allies have bypassed us, signaling a global vote of no confidence. Canada has emerged as a new hub for international trade, its prime minister hailed for championing stability. The US must now compete with its neighbor for global partnerships. Our relationship with Canada has fundamentally changed. Domestically, the administration faces bipartisan criticism for a historic foreign policy failure. Even allies are scrambling for answers. The fear, this is just the beginning. Other countries may follow, deepening ties with Canada and leaving the US further isolated. The world is reorganizing and America is no longer at the center. This is a moment of profound reckoning. Our influence is diminished. The blueprint for global leadership is being rewritten without us. The shockwaves are hitting Wall Street and Main Street alike. The Dow plunged over 900 points as news broke, with automakers, tech giants, and retailers suffering heavy losses. Investors fear instability, and right now, America's trade future is uncertain, but the real pain is local. Port cities like Long Beach and Newark depend on steady imports. Fewer ships mean fewer jobs. Manufacturing faces supply chain disruptions and higher costs as parts are rerouted through Canada. American-made goods may become less competitive, risking factory slowdowns or closures. Every family could feel the impact at the checkout counter. Electronics, clothing, and food from the 7 nations may become more expensive. Inflationary pressure is the last thing struggling families need. The economic tremors are just beginning. The foundation of American prosperity is at risk. The consequences will ripple through every community. This is not a distant problem, it's at our doorstep. The social fallout is just as real as the economic. Job losses in logistics and manufacturing devastate communities, fueling despair and uncertainty. Economic hardship can lead to poverty, health problems, and social unrest. Political polarization may intensify as people look for someone to blame. Nationalist and anti-trade sentiment could rise, making solutions harder to find. Our national identity is shaken. America's role as global leader is in question. This crisis forces us to confront who we are and where we fit in the world. Decades of business partnerships and cultural exchange are at risk. As trade routes shift, we lose more than money. We lose vital connections. The social consequences will take years to fully understand. The fabric of our society is being tested. The stakes are higher than ever. Experts warn this is the gravest challenge to U.S. economic leadership in decades. Dr. Evelyn Reed of the Council on Foreign Relations calls it a direct result of ignoring alliance management. Years of warnings went unheeded. Rebuilding trust will take a generation. Dr. Marcus Thorne, trade economist, says the real danger is global investment shifting to Canada. New factories and research centers will be built there, not here. Retired Admiral William Morrison warns that economic security is national security. When allies lose faith in us, our entire alliance structure weakens. This event signals to adversaries that the Western alliance is fractured. A former U.S. trade representative calls it a tragedy, predictable and avoidable. Trade policy, they say, requires precision, not blunt force. We've forgotten the art of statecraft and patient diplomacy. The world took the exit ramp to Canada because we left them no choice. The implications go far beyond trade. Our global standing is at stake. The warnings are clear. Will we listen? So where do we go from here? Experts agree. The U.S. must fundamentally reassess its foreign and trade policy. Humility and diplomacy are essential. The administration must urgently engage with the 7 nations, listening, not threatening. Painful concessions, including tariff reversals, may be necessary. Dialogue with Canada is critical to avoid a destructive North American trade war. Congress must act. This is a national, not partisan crisis. We need investment in infrastructure, education, and innovation to restore competitiveness. America must give the world reasons to choose us again. This is a moment for unity and purpose. The choices we make now will shape our destiny for decades. The world isn't waiting for us to catch up. The future is still unwritten if we act.